Today is October 11th, 2023. We are interviewing Crystal Jekyll. My name is Esther Finder. Ms. Jekyll is in Bonita Springs, Florida. I am in Henderson, Nevada in the United States, and the language will be English. Thank you for speaking with us today. What is your name and can you please spell it?
The spelling from, okay, it's Jakel.
And your first name?
Crystal. It's Christel.
And what was your name at birth? And can you spell that too?
Dymke. Dymke.
Was that your first name or your last name?
My last name.
Same first name?
The same first name, yes.
Where were you born?
Berlin, Schöneberg, or Berlin, Schöneberg.
In what country?
Germany.
And when were you born?
May 25, 1936.
Forgive me for asking, but how old are you today?
87.
What was Berlin like in your childhood? What do you remember?
Very scary. We were scared to say anything. You didn't feel like you were a free person. You were under pressure constantly. And I lost some good friends. One day they were there, next day they were gone. And I didn't know at that time what happened. Just later, when I heard kind of the adults talking, then I didn't understand. I was just between 5 and 6 then. And I lost a very good friend. She lived next door, and her mother committed suicide too. So that was before she disappeared. And you know, when I came to remember her name, I tried so hard so many times because we were close, very close. I wasn't allowed to have any friends coming to the house, but I went to her apartment all the time, playing and stuff, and that's why it was double hard to lose somebody like that. So then some adults were saying, oh, she just went to relatives. They were in denial, and that was not true. But I didn't know that. I was too little, you know, and I just believed what adults tell you.
You know what happened to her?
Never found out what happened to her. But everybody, you know, later on, adults were talking and saying that that's why the mother committed suicide. We were coming home from school, and her mother said, now just a minute, I'm going to give you some money. You go and get milk. And we were interrupting her when she was trying to hang herself. And she must have known, because we heard at night screams, people especially women jumping out a window, you know, because they were so scared. And so we came back got the milk, and we couldn't get the door open. And she was passed away already. She died. Um, but I don't understand why she did it. She had a daughter, never met her father. I don't know if her father was in a war somehow, a soldier. I have no idea. But we interrupted her the first time and we were in the door. And so it could have been that she went to relatives. I have no idea. But she just disappeared completely.
Was she Jewish or was she Aryan?
Yes, she was. She was
Jewish.
What?
Can I ask you about your family for a few moments so we get some of your background? What was your father's name and what did he do for a living?
He was a tailor. And that's my Christian family.
What was his name?
Kurt Dumke, Kurt with a K-U-R-T, Dumke. His middle initial was Reinhold, like his father. And
you would, please continue. You were telling me about his religious background.
I was raised by my Christian family, and I was baptized when I was over a year old, Christian. And everybody in my family now, they say that's, and Sheila said that too, that that saved my life, that I was baptized as a Christian. Because my mother was partially Jewish from her mother's side. And
I'll get to your mother in just a minute. Had your father's family lived in Germany many generations?
Yes, they all were. My grandmother, she came from a farm in Germany, and my grandfather, he lived on a coal ship, and there were 21 kids. And on my grandmother's side were 18 kids. And the oldest ones always had to work in the field. And my grandmother always told me that the kids all had chores to do, even though they were pretty well off. Her father was a mayor and tax collector, and he was originally, they were Russian, Russian, and they had to flee Russia because of that time, and it was all different. And but my grandmother left when she was 18 from her home, and Germany was different at those days. The kids, they had a lot of kids, but everyone had a chore to do. And she always said mother was out in the field and working with help and the kids, and then she always says, "Pa, it's time." So she went home had the baby, and next day she was out in the field again. So nowadays you wouldn't be under, I don't understand. So, but it's very hard. And then that's why she left 18 from home and married and was kind of young. And but there was never enough money. My grandfather was a shoemaker, and he was making. He was in the service in World War One, and he made riding boots for Kaiser Wilhelm. So that's was his job as a. That's all he ever did.
What was your mother's name?
Ilse Anna Erdmann. So.
And what work did she do when she was young?
She was a ballerina. And then she developed varicose veins, and she couldn't dance anymore. She could play a piano. Just when I met her, she could really play a piano. She was very good. I don't have any. Her mother was living too, because I met her. She was living with my mother after the war.
Let's not go to after the war yet. Can you tell me about your mother's family background? What religions were involved?
Her father in Trebin. My mother was born in Trebin, Germany. That's a small town in Berlin somehow. And my grandfather, he was a barber. I was living there for a while with them, and he always, when there was no customers, I remembered he put me in a chair and kind of acted out like you would shave me and stuff like that. That's all I can remember. I can remember, and he was a Christian too. And my grandmother, because she married a Christian, she was disowned by her family. She was not, she never had a family. Because they were very strict and very, especially her grandfather, and so it's very sad, something like this. And I know her brothers. She had two brothers. They had a store. It had specialized in anything in leather purses, leather billfolds, and everything in leather. And they were not living too far away from where I was living. They had a big store. So, but I never met them. I just found out that they were related to me somehow. And I remember the adults were talking about that my grandmother, because she was Jewish in a small town, she had to walk on a street. She was not allowed to walk on a sidewalk. She had all her privileges in town, people were against them, and I never heard anything from them again, and from my mother either. And later I found out that that's another story there about my brother and stuff. You want me to wait?
I'll ask you about your brother in a few minutes.
Okay.
I know I'm going to ask you about your brother. Because your grandmother was Jewish,
Yes.
was there any opposition from your father's family to marrying your mother?
Yes, very much so. My grandmother, I called her the mean grandmother, didn't, she always said, look, she looks just like Ilse. That was my mother. And I was punished for nothing. She was very, very bad towards me. And my dad was in a war, and I couldn't tell him anything. And then she always said, when you ever gonna tell your father about this, then you know what's gonna happen. Oh, I had a very bad childhood. I wasn't allowed to have a friend. I wasn't allowed to play with my toys. I could look at them, but I was not allowed at all. She was very, very bad. And my grandfather, he was a good guy, but he didn't dare say anything because he wanted the peace. My grandmother was the one controlled the money. She because she had better education and he had, so to keep peace, he never said anything. But when she was gone to work, he kind of played with me, and he was very nice to me. But as soon as she was there again, it was all the same, every day the same thing. It just, it was awful.
Did your neighbors and the friends of the family, I mean, who knew that your mother had Jewish ancestry? Was it
No,
widely known?
no. Nobody told anybody that. The Christian family did not tell anybody. I was told my mother died, that I didn't have a mother. They didn't allow her, I suppose, because my grandmother hated her so much that she, I don't know, no, nobody said anything. But the neighbors always said, oh, did you see Ilse? Ilse was visiting. There was a friend lived across the street. They had a bakery, and she always go and visit there. And then people reported it to my grandmother that she was around watching me again. So that's, but I never knew who that lady was. I seen her and stuff. Nobody told me that was my mother.
Can you explain the family dynamic? Did you ever live with your mother? Where was your father?
Yes, when I was a baby. Until I was 2 years old. Two or three, something like that, old. I lived with my mother. And my dad. We were as a family. And but then my grandmother, my dad was not a very good father. I think he married too young, and he was spoiled rotten because he was a boy, and that was important to families. Girls didn't mean anything, and he was not a good provider. He looked out for himself to have fun and go drinking with buddies and stuff, but my grandmother never admitted it to herself that he was like that. So she went to a social, yeah, and told them that they should take how my mother treated me, but she had no money. He always, when Friday he got his check, it was gone. And so she had nothing uh, to feed me, to clean me, nothing. So naturally my grandmother thought she was a bad mother, and didn't let her. She went and complained to a social worker, and the house smelled urine because all she could do rinse the diapers and reuse them because she had no money. So that's why it went to court, and to court they kind of took the kids away, my brother and me, because they didn't want, my grandmother did not wanted me because I was a girl and I looked like my mother. And so there she told they said, no, you have to take both kids, or they gonna go in foster care. So they had to take us both, and that's why it didn't help any. Her hatred towards my mother just got bigger. And like I said, it was awful to live. And to this day, I have nightmares about her and everything else. And that's why I'm on medication.